Mustang Monday again. So, anybody that can do basic math can look at a calendar and go, Eric, this isn't going to happen. You're running out of Mondays. I have 15 left. Monday 16 from now is going to be on the Hot Rod Power Tour. I will hopefully be in the middle of the trip, thereabouts. So I need to step up my game and get a little bit more accomplished than I have been. So in this particular video, I won't be doing any one particular thing. Up until now, it's just been little project, little project, little project. This one's going to be a couple of different projects. Unfortunately, none of them actually got complete. Project number one that I got done this past week was I got the window regulators a little further along. I got the little tension coil thingy in there. These things are spring-loaded, and essentially I had to pull the thing apart, cut one of the teeth down, and then reinforce the teeth, weld it back up so that it wouldn't go past the thing when you turn the window too far. But I got those in. Also, just complete function checked, made sure. And then I went through and got a count of all of the rollers that I need. So I was going to order those parts a couple weeks ago, and then I figured I'm going to need more window parts, so I just hold out on that. So that was project number one.
I was originally able to get these things apart by just prying a little tension coil apart, but they weren't going back together that way, so I had to modify it a little bit, as you see in the video. Cut a tooth down, put the piece in there, and then crank it down so that it would line up where it was supposed to be and function mostly the way it was supposed to be, I hope. Once I had it together, I put a backing plate on it, welded it, and then ground the weld flat on both sides, and then just did a function test to make sure that when cranked past its limit, it didn't actually come off.
Project number two was I pulled the axles to get an idea of exactly what kind of bearing assembly I had in the car. That is not a factory Mustang 9-inch rear end. They did not come with that particular one as far as I'm aware. The previous owner apparently put an aftermarket rear end in there, or a different rear end in there, probably something out of Versailles or something like that, who knows. But anyways, I needed to pull that apart so I could figure out what I was going to do with the brakes. My options consisted of putting a rear disc brake kit on, which is what I wanted to originally do, or I could just go through and put the drum system back on. But before I did that, I needed to know what part-wise I needed. As it turns out, drum brakes probably pretty easy, but I've got a kit, or I've got some brackets on order from a small fabrication company. If it works out and the guy is still actually in business, I haven't heard from him, so he may not be, but if he's still in business, this is going to make things pretty easy because it will be the exact same brake pieces that I use on my 2000 and my son uses on his 94.
So I wiggled the axle and the bearing out so I had access to be able to take the measurements. Found a wonderful site on the internet. I love the internet. Proceeded to take a couple of different measurements to get an idea. I pretty much had an idea right off the bat what it was, but I wanted to verify. So I took some measurements, figured out for sure which one it was, and then went from there.
And the third and final thing that we got done, because it was kind of a we, thing got done was I went out to my father's house this past week and started pillaging his 46 Ford Coupe that had a 302 and T5 combination in it that was originally supposed to be driven. He hasn't had time to work on it, so it's been sitting there, so we figured we'll go out there, pull the motor, pull the transmission, see if the motor worked. That was our first job. As it turns out, the motor didn't work. So we pulled the transmission and several of the components, including a 4-barrel manifold and a 4-barrel carb, off of that, and I'm going to put them on the motor that I've got here, hopefully sometime in the next couple of days to start that, and if I'm lucky, that motor will run. If that motor runs, I'm good to go. If that motor doesn't run, then I have to scramble for another solution. So anyways, a couple of things going on last week, and there will be even more, a couple going on next week. I'm running out of time. 15 more to go. Have a great week.
Once we realized that the motor wasn't going to turn over, we didn't want to spend the time and energy to try and figure out why. We basically just started pulling parts off of it. Anything that I could use to make this cheaper and faster and easier came off of that car, and we'll go on this one for now.
So here I am with my table full of stolen parts, not including the 5-speed transmission that's sitting on the floor right there. Got the distributor, manifold, carburetor, I've got starter, I've got to pull the yoke on the drive shaft so that I can hook it up to mine, dig around in my attic to find the flex plate and compare it so that I order the right flywheel for the motor that I've got, and a few other little projects to do to get this along. But my goal is going to be to get this thing assembled and ready to put into the car. Then I've got to spin the car around in the garage so that I can load it in. The front radiator brace on the car has been cut off. My intent is to fabricate it so it's pretty easy to remove quickly. I just haven't managed to get that far yet, but in the end it's not going to matter. No radiator yet, so I'll jump off that bridge when I get there. Have a great week.